subdivision plats. The Commission's decision to approve or deny a site plan or preliminary subdivision plat is the final decision by the city unless the applicant appeals to City Council. You'll need to contact the City Clerk or Community Development Department staff for details on those council hearings. This evening, the applicant will be given 10 minutes to present the request. Proponents and then opponents from the public are allowed to speak in that order, with each speaker allowed a maximum of 5 minutes. The applicant will then be allowed 5 minutes for rebuttal. The hearing will then be closed, and after motion, the Commission will discuss and vote on the issue. All comments are to be germane to the item under consideration, and speakers are to maintain a courteous manner. Items listed on the consent portion of the agenda will not be individually discussed. There's one item, and there may be one other one coming on tonight, and will be considered for approval in accordance with recommendation of the staff report unless an individual present or a member of the Commission requests the item be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately under the public hearing agenda. The City of Des Moines is pleased to provide accommodations to individuals or groups with disabilities and encourages participation in city government. To better serve you when possible, please notify us at least 3 business days in advance at area code 515-283-4209 should special accommodations be required. Assistive listening devices are available for meetings in the council chambers. The Planning and Zoning Commission meetings are also broadcast on Mediacom cable channel 7.1 or 7.2 for customers with that service. Kathy, do we have a quorum? Quorum being present, has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes? Is there a motion?
I move.
Got it? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Acclamation, Kathy. It passes. I'm going to go first to item number 5, and I understand, Eric, there's a request for a continuance on item number 5?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
For the next meeting, which would be on June 5th, correct.
All right, well, I'm going to read over that very quickly. It's a request from Greenwood Investors Number 2 LLC, represented by Daniel Kelly, for review and approval of a site plan under design guidelines in NPC districts on property located at 3900 Ingersoll Avenue to allow reconstruction of the existing surface parking deck above an underground parking structure proposed for replacement of that structural system. Is there anyone here to speak on this item tonight? Anyone confused about whether they're here to speak on that item? Okay. Seeing none, is there a motion? Greg? Move to continue. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, same sign. By acclamation. I'm sorry, what's the date we're going to continue it to, Eric? June 5th?
June 5th.
All right. That was everybody's understanding, it was the June 5th? Okay. It passes. I'm going to go to, is there a motion to move additional items on to the consent agenda? CJ? Number 3, right? Let me let everybody know what. Yeah. Number 3 is a request from Jeffrey Tucker to rezone property located at 4044 East 14th Street. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to that item? In opposition to that item? Any of the commissioners want to remove that item? Seeing none, there's a motion on the floor. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, I wanted to point out that the item 4, they agree to everything in the staff report. Item 4, we need to clarify that.
Item 3.
Item 3. Item 4 in the staff report of item 3. Item 3. Sorry, I meant condition number 4 of item 3.
All right.
That's applicable to new overhead doors, not all of them that exist on the building. So, and that was the intent of the staff report.
Right. Any questions with respect to that? Any questions with respect to the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of moving 3 to consent, please signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Acclamation, Kathy. That passes. Is there a motion to move all the consent items? Greg? Everybody understand the consent items that are being moved? The first one is request from Christensen Development, 505 East Grand Avenue, represented by Jake Christensen, for vacation of air rights over the east 7 feet of 5th Street, adjoining the subject property for a length of 65 feet south of East Grand Avenue and over the south 5 feet of East Grand Avenue, 20 feet in the length beginning 100 feet east of East 5th Street to allow for projections of a proposed two-story building to extend over the public sidewalks in East 5th Street and East Grand Avenue at a height above 10 feet. That's item number one. Item number three, once again, is a request from Jeffrey Tucker to rezone property located at 4044 East 14th Street. And it's to rezone from C2, general retail and highway-oriented commercial resident, and R160, one-family low-density residential district, to M1 light industrial district to allow the subject property to be used for landscaping business and contractor equipment storage yard. Any discussion on those items? Is there anyone here on either of those items in the audience? In opposition, sir?
No, not opposition.
All right. Motion being on the floor, there's no discussion. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Consent items number 1 and 3 have been approved. Moving on to item number 2. It's a request from East Village Tower Partners, LLC, 600 East 5th Street, represented by Jake Christensen, for review and approval of a site plan under design guidelines in C3B districts to allow conversion of the existing senior living apartments and skilled nursing facility to a mixed-use building with 102 units of multifamily apartments, 44 beds of skilled nursing, and 3,200 square feet of restaurant. That was before us at the last meeting. Eric, are you presenting on this one, sir?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Members of the commission, this was continued in the absence of the applicant last time, so I think there's some questions that you had, but I also wanted to indicate there's a revised version of the staff report for that item, and basically the change is number 6 at the end of the staff recommendations. We're making specific recommendation as to how to manage existing ash trees on the site that were not being removed as part of the site plan. And I'll just show you quickly here. There's ones that we're referencing are in the yellow. And they're very large at this point and mature, and at this point I think healthy, but we want to make sure that if they do become unhealthy that they are mitigated, because losing those substantial trees at this part of the building that's up against the streets, we would want to replace that landscaping material with other material that would eventually become large. The way the ordinance is written, that's a species that we don't necessarily mitigate under the mitigation provisions, but in this case, we want to make sure that there's some level of replenishing there to keep the same landscape scheme that's going on. The other thing is they did resubmit and put street trees in this area which weren't there previously. And I'll let them explain their revisions and make themselves available for questions. But I guess the other thing I should point out is there's 3 ash trees in the right-of-way that are being retained for the time being. However, it should be noted that those are in the longer range replacement schedule for the city. They're not in the immediate trees that are being removed in the near term, but they are on that list of trees throughout the city which the Public Works would be removing and replacing at some point in the future on a schedule that they would have to determine at some point. So,
Any questions? Is the applicant present? Please come forward, give us your name and address.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, Jake Christensen, 506 3rd Street. I'd like to start off by apologizing for an absence from anyone from my team last meeting. I serve on a board as well. I understand your time, so my apologies for our absence. Secondly, I would like to quickly refer back to the consent agenda item number 5 for 505, We actually were able to find a shorter maple that will go in the place of the planter boxes that we had proposed, so we studied that further and were able to make that work. With that, I'll move on to Prime Tower, and as Eric described, we have 103 apartments that exist in the building that are currently vacant that we are working towards a renovation of the building. In an effort to renovate the building and make it suitable for those apartments, we are replacing the parking lot, which is in very much need of repair, and then making small modifications to the parking lot on East Fifth Street. As Eric noted, we met with Eric and Frank and talked through the opening site. So as Eric mentioned, we have put in the street trees in addition to the existing ash trees along East Fifth. We have added shrubbery along the urban edge as you proceed north on East Fifth, and added the bioswale on the northern portion of the site here for water quality of the new parking area that we're doing on East Fifth. With that, I'd open up for questions. I don't want to take any more of it.
Any questions, Greg?
You say that you're revising the parking area because it's in poor shape, but it's also taking up much more space. So is there a parking number that you're going for? The reason for my question is you're taking out maple trees and pears and other what I consider desirable plants, and even though you're putting some back in, it doesn't look to me like a whole lot of effort was put into saving any of those plant materials. So unpack your thoughts.
Sure. The paving area on the west side of the building is just a replacement. The only new paving is on the East Fifth portion. And so that is really to increase the ability for trash pickup. Currently, the trash trucks have to go up a steep incline on the west side of the building. And actually, that was a different version, sorry. Trash is still on the west side. It really is a change for accessibility for the restaurant space that we anticipate on the second floor, which is the grade level as you enter from the east side of the building. And so that expansion of that parking lot is in large part to be able to accommodate some parking for that restaurant when we're able to secure a tenant there. Otherwise, the rest of the parking lot is just replacement.
But on the west, the old parking lot kind of curved in the shape of the building, and now it's kind of a big straight shot, and it's expanded to the north more than it did before.
True.
Is there any way to keep any of the trees that are either west of the existing parking lot or to the north of the existing parking lot on the west?
I am more than open to look at that. We could look at an additional tree island. We talked about the circulation. We are limited because the grade drops off dramatically, and we're attempting to mitigate that. But I'm not standing in front of you trying to take out trees, so I would definitely look at that.
Other Greg. You can have your hand up. Okay, I'm sorry. Joanne?
I'm not sure where things are going on this. Where is the parking and access for the skilled care?
Skilled care is a component of the parking on the west side of the building.
The large parking?
Correct.
And also that is access to the apartments?
Right. So we are trying to make a front door for the apartments that hasn't existed. And so at the northern portion where you see the white semicircle in this image, that is the main entrance for the apartments. So on the west side of the building, you will have both apartment parkers as well as skilled care, primarily employee parking for the skilled care.
And then where is access? My questions are because family parking or family living and skilled care usually don't mix.
I agree with you.
And I'm wondering if the access, say like for transports or ambulances or what have you have their own access to the skilled care area?
Skilled care can be accessed both from the lower level, which is the west side, as well as the east side. So from an ADA standpoint, there is multiple access points for deliveries and for people needing, ambulance services.
And so you would request these be separated?
I'm confused.
I'm talking about, you've got some 90-year-old person that's coming into your skilled care, and they're coming into the parking lot, and so is a minivan full of 6-year-olds. Now, if you can figure out what that's going to sound like, they just don't mix.
There are two issues that I think you're accurately pointing out that we're contending with. The skilled care has signed a 3-year lease. We inherited that facility and the tenant that came with it in the acquisition of the building.
That's beside the point.
It
You
is
still
not their
have-
long-term plan to be there is the relevant portion of it. So we are looking at a 3-year solution before we redevelop the skilled nursing facility. So
So that is going away eventually.
based on what they have told us, they are not going to continue to occupy the building after their lease is up.
I don't blame them. Thank you.
I think the other part is the average apartment size in the building is about 560 square feet. I would not find it likely that a minivan full of children is going to live in 500 square feet.
Well, I didn't say anything about living in it. I'm talking about visiting, or, grandma's having a birthday party for the 6-year-old one.
Sure.
and Here comes
Fair enough.
the group.
CJ?
I would like to get back to the green infrastructure, and I understand what you're trying to do, and Greg brought up a legitimate point. We're losing a lot of trees here, and I understand that you are in compliance with the mitigation rules, that you didn't make them, I didn't make them. But they are something that this city should really be embarrassed about. And I hope that someday soon, the council will see to it that we address those issues. And in the meantime, just qualifying with what the minimum of the law doesn't constitute what is going on in the environmental world today. When you put out more concrete, we are creating more heat islands. We know that just down the street from this building that you're rehabbing, the president and our mayor just had a national conference addressing some of these issues. And it's ironic that just 3 days later, we're taking down trees that significantly contribute to the tree canopy and the collection of carbons. Trees are not effective in the environment until they get 10 inches in diameter. So I know this commission is tired of hearing me talk about this, but it's something that's real, and it's just not me. It's something that we all need to think about. When we start a project, we need to start with conserving not only energy in the buildings, but the green environment that surrounds it. So I appreciate you taking a second look at that and seeing if you could save some of these trees if they're healthy, and do your part to reduce this heat island effect.
I gave my word before and I did it, and I'll do it again.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'm just curious what your concept of the restaurant, if it goes in, what are you thinking? Just
Honestly, that's something that we've struggled with a fair amount. It is the views from the second floor. If any of you are familiar with the Zombie Burger building, the second floor of this building, which you would walk in from the east at that level, is taller than E300. And so the views are spectacular. That being said, at this current juncture, the building is very close to the East Village, but not connected to the East Village. So we're in the long-range plan, as we redevelop whatever property we have left after leases expire, then we hope to make a better connection. So I think that goes to who the restaurant ends up being. If we had to put one in today, I think we would have to accept something less than what maybe we could get if we waited a little while. And so our plan is to wait.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here to speak in favor of the application? I'm going to open the public hearing. In favor of the application, please come forward, give us your name and address.
Hello, Bob Eichelberry. I own Blazing Saddle, 416 East 5th. I've been supporting all of Jake's projects because I'm his biggest neighbor, front and back. The Prime Tower, well, my mother lives in a skilled care facility, loves it. It is the biggest single standing piece of real estate in the East Village that has been kind of forgotten of. The heating, the electrical system, everything is way outdated. And I truly believe that if Jake goes through with this, we're going to have a great, great place to live. The bus is right down the street, easy transportation, and it may help some of our parking. So anyway, I'm in full support. Thank you.
Thank you. Hold on just a second. Any questions? Thanks. Anybody else to speak in favor of the application? In favor of the application? Seeing none, all those to speak in opposition to the application, please come forward. Likewise, seeing none. Jake, do you need opportunity for rebuttal? No, thank you. Okay. I'm going to close the public hearing. Do you have a motion?
I move staff.
Okay. Move staff. Got it. Any discussion? Tim?
I do have one other question for Jake, if he doesn't mind. And it's kind of playing off of Joanne's. I also had a mother that lived in skilled care. When this lease is up for the skilled care, you have a 3-year resolution, or the people that are there, are they going to have a security that they don't have to move? That's just something that's going through my mind. It probably has nothing to do with the zoning commission, but just curious, what are your thoughts after? I can't imagine my mother being moved when she got to a certain point of skilled care. That's where I'll end that.
I'd appreciate the opportunity to expand on that. Pacifica Healthcare, who operates a skilled facility, is the approved by the government to provide the skilled care in the facility. We granted them a 5-year lease. They asked for the ability to leave after 3 if they so chose, and they have communicated the fact that they most likely will. I cannot speak for them as to how they will treat the people who live there, which is certainly very important. We've given them more time than what they asked for to be able to make that transition as smooth as possible. We actually haven't even told them they had to leave. When we purchased the building, they had been in the building for a long time, and during just prior to purchasing it, we had conversations with them to make sure we understood their intent. And at that time is when they said, we do not want to be in this location long-term. And so a relocation has always been at the front of their mind and has had no pressure from us to leave. It's a significant building. If they want to continue to lease it from us and the logistics of having the 2 uses work together, we'd be fine with it. I've done more complex mixed-use buildings. I am confident that there is a solution to allow separation between different parties at an acceptable level, but I can't speak for what their plans are.
Thank you. Any other discussion, questions? Joanne?
I just have a comment, and I'm going to vote for this mainly because the skilled care is leaving. I just cannot see it continuing with an apartment building with any number of different types of people. And also recently trying to find a place for a little old lady that I know. Believe me, there's a lot of places where they can be moved to, and I'm sure that whoever owns that is in conversation already with a place where certain people can go. So I don't have a problem with that. So to me, I like the idea of taking that old building and actually doing something with it, and instead of tearing it down and make it look like something that's, all new and wonderful and not any more wonderful than the old building. So I'm going to go with this in the knowledge that the skilled care is going to be leaving in a reasonable amount of time.
Any other discussion? I'm going to call a question. All those in favor of the motion, which is to approve staff's recommendation, please signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Tim's in opposition. It passes. Moving on to item number 4. It's a request from, I'm not sure if it's Jam Coffee or JAM Coffee LLC, represented by Michael Armour, for review and approval of a site plan under design guidelines in NPC districts on property located at 1500 East Grand Avenue to allow development of a 450-square-foot coffee restaurant with a drive-up service window. Subject property is owned by Neighborhood Development Corporation. Eric, you presenting on this one, sir?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Give me a couple seconds here. Make sure I have the...
Should I stall? I'm good at that, by the way.
I guess I should point out where this location is, first of all. We're talking about the northeast corner of East Grand Avenue and East 15th Street. Right where downtown really transitions into the Capitol East neighborhood. This, not so long ago, was rezoned to NPC on the north side of East Grand, and a majority of the block has actually been developed in accordance with the NPC zoning. This is a leftover piece. The most recent building that was on this location was a floral shop that was built right up to the corner. I think it also had some cosmetology or beauty occupants in it as well at different points in time.
Eric, I'm curious about that. Didn't we get that whole block NPC, or did we?
It is. Can you see the blue line?
Yeah,
Yeah, the whole block is NPC, so
Okay.
this property is zoned NPC.
okay.
It is right up against C2 to the south and west, and then high-density residential on the further northwest. So it's right at that transition point, and obviously East 15th Street is a very busy corridor in the city, if not one of the biggest from a traffic volume perspective, and it is only one way going north right here. East Grand is bi-directional, but the East 15th Street is only one way to the north, paired up with East 14th, the block to the west that would go south. Right now, we're at a bit of a loggerheads based on what was submitted. Staff believes that we need to uphold the NPC provisions, which would suggest putting buildings to the street and parking away from the street. East Grand is really the pedestrian-oriented corridor. So the idea would be that we'd want the building brought to the street. In order to really do that with this narrow of a site, and also given the factor of a water main right at the west edge of this property, which we need to avoid it to a certain extent, and the difficulty of getting an access point here, staff was recommending bringing the building down and eliminating any access from East Grand, which would require all the access to the site to come from East 15th off of the alley to the north and circulate and then leave back through that location. So based on that, what was submitted, we recommended denial, but we left the door open, I guess, for a solution which would include some access, but would need to segregate that. And so right now,
Those drawings are.
yeah, this is what we contemplated as staff right here, which would be and this is just a rough sketch layout of that. And then
And the hash is the building, or is it that?
The hatch is kind of an outdoor patio area or
Okay,
seating
all right.
area.
It's
probably.
like NASCAR.
Yeah. So it would come in here, you know, the challenge is the driver is the one that has to butt up against the building, you know? So it's the left side of the vehicle that has to approach the drive-through. So that's really one of the bigger challenges here. So to get it to be away from the street and having the left side of the vehicle, the circulation comes around and then leaves back through here. We understand that throws them off of the East Grand corridor by about a block. And once they leave the site, there's a little extra step in negotiating, getting back to East Grand to get into downtown. But we also think that there's challenges within the site getting out based on their layout, which once you leave this, you have to queue onto East Grand and
Eric, I think there's a aerial in there that shows in the surrounding.
Oh, yeah, there was a. This kind of shows that. I don't know if you can see the pens here. The site is right here. Grand is a two-way going this way. And then East 15th is northbound only, East 14th is southbound. So anyone leaving here has to go up to Des Moines and back over west and down to get back to Grand to go west. Whereas if you're coming out this driveway that they are proposing, you would have to queue and wait to get an opening into the westbound traffic to go west, or circulate again through the site to get back out and do the same thing. So those were the two options on that. The other, I don't know, do you want me to show option 2 at this point, Mike? Okay. This is one of the, we've had some discussions in recent days, and this is one possible alternative depending on, we weren't sure the dimensions of the site would work with this to get the parking maneuvering, the drive aisle dimensions, and get to the building and still be able to get this, but they would basically circulate in the site, go up to the alley, and come back out if they needed to get to East Grand on this eastern driveway that's just basically an outlet to Grand.
Eric, let me ask you something. Has the neighborhood been contacted about any of these ideas, or?
I don't think we've gotten into this level of detail with anybody from the neighborhood. They got notice of this request.
Because as you recall, we had this once before. It was a different, I think it was a Burger King or something.
Yeah, that was on the block to the north. That was a Wendy's that was talking about
Right,
going
right.
block on the north side of Des Moines Street. So-
Right, and they were talking about putting into the alley, and that was one of the big to-dos on that one, too.
Yeah, this is a little different in that the alley doesn't go, it isn't affecting a residential property as greatly.
Okay, that's right.
That one was up in this area.
Right, I remember that. Okay,
Right now, this entire block has parking in behind that outlets to the alley, east-west through the block, so. So at this point, we're not able to support it as submitted, but are open to a continuance to review an alternative that would maybe include this, something that similar to this option 2 would be the only way we're thinking at this point, but Mike's got some.
Just a few comments. First of all, I want to thank the applicant because they did come in and meet with staff and we did discuss a couple of these options. Just a couple of reference points on it. As Eric did say, we did rezone the whole block to NPC. The neighborhood plan hoped for neighborhood pedestrian commercial development, and we have seen that on a majority of the block. Granted, this site is on 15th Street, but, from our viewpoint, what is proposed currently is entirely a drive-through facility. There is no sit-down eating component, dining component to the facility. So it is purely an auto-dominant use on the property. What we thought of as from staff was, we tried to work with the existing parameters of the dimensions that they had for their drive aisles and that, and tried to come up with at least a solution that allowed them them to still have a drive-through, but still complied with the intent and purpose of our NPC district on the property. It's not an ideal layout. It's not an ideal site to begin with from a circulation standpoint. There is some impairment to the site just by having the one-way street functioning with 15th Street. That whole pairing of 14th and 15th, every one of those commercial properties along there has some sort of impairment in their circulation. And I pointed out, for example, the Quiznos that's on 14th Street. You can only access it coming south on 14th, and then it's a one-way loop all the way around to the back. You come out on Des Moines Street and either go east to 15th to go north, or you merge back on and head south on 14th. It is very difficult, I think, to cross all the way across 14th on Des Moines Street. It can be done. I did it today. But you have to choose your gap. You have to choose your gap there. From a circulation standpoint of what was presented, our thought was for the whole site, the queuing for the drive-through starts at the north edge of the site. And so from our perspective, whether a car goes up 15th to get to the queuing for the drive-through, or whether they drive on their own property to the north edge of the property to get in the drive-through, was, from our perspective, somewhat a wash from staff's perspective. From our perspective, we probably thought it'd probably be easier to actually drive on the street and get to the drive-through on the north edge, drive up 15th and get in that north side of the site to start into the drive-through lane. Clearly, it's not as efficient for exiting the site going westbound. I think eastbound is fairly difficult on this site regardless, exiting out onto Grand Avenue. I've sat at that Quick Trip numerous times. The cars queue up and back up and actually block the westernmost drive or access for the Quick Trip frequently. If you are trying to go westbound, you either are on the back side of the Quick Trip or the eastern drive, or you use the south drive onto 15th Street and then get over into the lanes to go westbound. It's just regularly during the rush hour and stuff that backs up along Grand Avenue. So I think anything at that location is going to be somewhat of a challenge for access. We had hoped that the potential may be for this site and the adjoining site to redevelop together at some point in the future. And we would probably recommend that if that were to happen, a drive be a little bit further to the east for the site, but that site's not available today. So they just have this site, and we're trying to look at it. It's my understanding that Neighborhood Development Corporation will continue to own the property, and that this is a lease on the property for, I think, a 10-year initial period and then renewals. So theoretically up to potentially like 20 years. If it were here for 20 years, I'd really hope that we had something that looked NPC in that timeline on the property. But those were just our comments as staff as we went through it. I think the applicant wanted to discuss their proposal and get your thoughts and comments on it. Again, we are supportive of a continuance if they're willing to pursue some of these options we've outlined. Otherwise, unfortunately, I believe we would have to recommend denial as a staff. Thank you.
Any questions? Eric, I do have a question.
Okay?
The display you had up there earlier showing that whole block,
Yes.
and I think this is what Mike's talking about, but I'm trying to get this in my own mind. The parking lot that extends almost all the way across, there it is, okay. The parking lot that extends almost all the way across, the site that Mike's talking about is this two-building site that kind of blocks being able to run that parking lot all the way across?
Yes, and this is a newer building here, and then Lathrop's is right up against.
Oh, okay, all right. So
There's
that,
actually two buildings there. There's this one, it's a little darker, and then this one's a newer building.
Right.
And then the older building, which is Los Lorales, sits to the back of the,
is there any potential for a drive through this double building here, or are they stacked one on top of the other, or do you know?
the only opportunity right now is in the front here.
Okay.
And so any type of shared drive would have to be through this, which is their only limited amount of parking. I don't know if they've been open to giving that up staff hasn't had any direct discussions with them, perhaps
I mean, as I look at that, it would be nice if that parking that's in the back there would extend all the way across. That would set up perfectly, because that gives them access on.
Actually, if you really looked long-term, the two older buildings are the Los Loralis and the Lathrop's carpet. or
Right.
Lathrop's cleaning.
Right.
And that back could potentially maneuver
Right.
around behind that side of the building at some
The
point.
alley could be used also.
Yeah, the alley, it could, indirectly be through the alley system too.
Okay. Any other discussion? Any questions? CJ?
I just see a lot of concrete here, and I think you explained it by saying it's a drive-through only, yet on the other non-professional drawing, you show parking places. So I'm like, okay. I mean, could we have some pervious materials in here or something, not just another mile of concrete? I mean, again, I just don't see this as a fit for this property. I think it's a real challenge for success. And so that's my thought.
I guess the response to that would be that it may not require all this number of spaces.
So,
That's just for illustration of how they're going to maneuver it and.
And it was based on the idea there could be a
Some sit-down
actual
use of it, yeah.
walk-up area.
So there could be some green space in there.
There's not in the proposal currently, but there
No.
could be, it was our thought.
To get some green space in
You may
there?
want to throw that other one up there, Eric, so
Yeah,
I can
the
see
one
that
that
this
was
is
submitted, they only provided 4 spaces, I believe, here. So right in this area, there was a accessible space and then 3 standard.
But that's not flush to the street.
No. The building sits about
Right there.
Right.
almost 40 feet back.
Okay. Any other discussion? Seeing none, can the applicant please come forward and give us your name and address?
I am Abby Gilroy with Neighborhood Development Corporation, 3209 Ingersoll Avenue. And I am here to speak a little bit history on the property, how long we've owned it, and the use as a developer, the proposed use for the site. And I believe Ms. Stevens will like this picture a lot better. It shows the green space that would actually occur. This is rendering that our civil engineer has put together in the landscape plan that we are proposing. I believe you're all familiar with our organization, but if not, just real quick, we're a nonprofit real estate development company, and we're funded by the city of Des Moines. And those public funds are used to go and purchase sites like this. We did that entire East Grand block that you've seen tonight in the aerial. And this corner was part of that purchase back in 2003. So just over a decade, we've had this lot. It's sat vacant. It's sat blighted like this for quite some time. We've been trying to acquire Lathrop's that entire time. Every year we send them 2 or 3 letters, and there's just not a response. And it just hasn't happened for us yet. So we've been sitting on this piece of property, like I said, a little over 10 years. We've had one interested party, and that was Quick Trip, and they wanted to put a parking lot there for overflow parking. We obviously, as a partner of the city and as a developer, did not feel it was a great use. We didn't want to do that, even though we would have taken their money, no problem. So we waited it out. Scooters came to us. I was thrilled with it as a developer, thrilled. I thought it was a great use. I thought it was a great corner for that. When you look at the specific traffic that's going on here, East Grand, when you're heading west, that is the morning traffic. It's more than likely it's all traffic heading into downtown. Coffee shop on your right. Perfect. East 15th, yes, it's one way. It doesn't seem optimal, but it is for a coffee shop, for a coffee user. All the traffic heading north in the morning, it's heading to the freeway. I think traffic counts on there are 20,000 some cars a day. Perfect site, again, to me, for coffee and obviously for the user. They wouldn't be chasing this site as hard as they are if they didn't feel that way. We've been working with the city since October on this. This was one where I thought, we're shoo-in, we'll show up, we'll show them this plan, they'll love it. And it just hasn't worked out that way, but we've been working very closely with Mike, we've been working with Eric and the rest of the staff on trying to find a compromise plan that we can all agree upon. We understand the vision of the city. We know that they want this to be a pedestrian corridor. I think that's part of the 2020 plan maybe. And right now, I just feel that the market is driving it to be this. It's an auto-oriented corridor. East 15th is a state highway, East Grand. The properties we own, actually to the east, very auto consumer-oriented businesses. Our lot is consistently full, so much that we built a lot to the north that's actually on Des Moines Street. We don't get a lot of walk-up. I actually talked to a lot of our tenants about this, the restaurants and the folks there, and it's not walk-up traffic. Beautiful day, we might get people from the Capitol, but it is a good solid 2 blocks. It's not what's going on in this area. So we thought good use, the MPC zoning, I understand that's what is in place, and we need to design to meet that, but we have tried to put other concessions in place, such as the landscaping around the border. We were going to berm up, do some landscaping, some fencing, something like that to kind of dress it up and block the view of the drive-through lane from East Grand. Pushing the building up to East Grand is, I know, what the city wants to do, and their plan, I think that option 2, that's possible, but we really want to, or I guess I should say the operator wants to have the ingress, egress there, just to eliminate all the congestion that's going to happen up here at 15th Street. So they're asking for this plan. It is what's best for their business. I'm not in the coffee business, so I can't tell them how best to set up or lay out this site plan, but I do drive through, and I know that this is what the general public is used to, is coming in and making that counterclockwise movement to get your coffee or food, what have you. So this was the optimal site for them. A couple things I wanted to talk about. I might have already, but let me make sure. The East Grand, or heading east traffic, the people trying to make left turns out, it's going to be few and far between. I don't think we're going to get a lot of people that are heading east in the morning as much as we are heading west. So at the end of the day, I would like to see the corner developed. It needs to be activated. It's been sitting there blighted and empty. We have a credible user. I was thrilled and impressed with their building materials that they use. They aren't just slapping up a building. It's got the stone, it's got EIFS, it's got signage. It's a very high quality build. And for this corner, we just cannot continue to let it sit there vacant if we have someone that's willing, able, and very good use for this corner. And NDC would really like to see something happen just to cap off all the millions we've spent to the east. We aren't going to get Lathrop, so let's develop something outside of it to even block it a little bit. So that's where we are on it, and hopefully you'll consider all those comments.
Jan?
Yeah, do Lathrops own that building?
Yes, that is my understanding.
And so when you send them, I know them.
Oh, you do?
So, and I have a good relationship with them. I mean.
You do?
So when you send them letters, I mean, like the idea is they would sell that property?
We would appreciate it if they would, but they have not to date wanted to sell.
Uh-huh.
It's my understanding, the executive director before me, they got a price that was just something we could not do in the 400,000 range, which we can't do that here. But it's his business too, so he's selling the business, he's relocating, so I understand the price that he quoted, but it's out of our reach. And that's something we do need to talk about, is that if, say he does accept us to buy it, and we could do, NDC has looked at developing this corner, we can't, it's landlocked, it's a 1/4 acre. Financially, it doesn't make any sense, it's impossible. So if he were gone and we were to develop that corner to tie into what else we've done, we can work scooters into our development. We have talked about that. So they could be the end cap or something like that. Again, they're leasing the land. So they have a 10-year lease with us. They have the opportunity to terminate that lease at any time if they so choose to move the business, or if we decide to move them into our building, what have you. So it's a pretty stout building. It's not one you just pick up and move by any means, but if they had to relocate, we would work with them.
Greg?
So your request tonight, you've been trying to work with staff, but staff really thinks this doesn't fit in the NPC area because it doesn't abut Grand. So
Correct.
you are asking us to either approve this site plan as you've shown it without going through the other alternatives.
This is the plan that the user, scooters, would like to have approved. It is the optimal plan. If planning and zoning does not like this or does not want to approve this plan, we would like guidance on what you'd like to see in order to obtain your approval. But this is the optimal use, flow of the site.
Then
for
I'm
them.
going to unpack my brain. This does not fit NPC, period. So unless it can fit out on a street front, I think it doesn't work. And so I would not vote for it, but I might vote for one of the other two.
Okay.
Because it personally, I don't think anything with a drive-through at all fits in NPC. So I think we're going way farther than we should ought to do in approving this here at all. But in the spirit of approving something, knowing that it might not be here forever, hopefully, I think the building looks fine with me. If we could just get it back to the way that it was when there was a little building out on the corner and it actually fit the NPC idea. So unless there's a way to do that, I guess I'm with staff. So I don't know what else to unpack.
And I do want to look at the other four corners here. You have the Quick Trip, you have the housing that is set back. You know, I am a neighborhood revitalization type developer. I get stuck with sites like this a lot of the time, infill sites that are small. We have one on Southwest 9th, you're probably familiar with it. There's a subway trying to go in there. They want to drive through. The city is working very diligently to get developers or redevelopment on Southwest 9th, but because of the NPC zoning, it is prohibiting them to do that. I feel like we're in the situation here where we have somebody that's coming to town for the first time in 11 years that wants to revitalize and develop a site that has sat there blighted this long, but because of NPC zoning, we can't do it. So NDC will continue to own the site that we can't redevelop, and I don't want you to lose sight of that we are trying to revitalize this neighborhood. I work very closely with Capitol East. It's a redevelopment opportunity that I wish the city would not turn down, because we can't continue to do it alone as
Christine?
NDC.
I really appreciate all of the hard work and the thought that's gone into this. I have a sense of what that's taken. I also want to thank the applicant as well for their vision in trying to make something work here. But I'm in Greg's wake of stream of thought here. Being a very avid coffee drinker, I know that when people go through a drive-through, they need their caffeine. They're a little antsy anyway. And when I looked at this, I thought, what is going to really happen? It's complicated. And what I'd like to know then, depending on, of course, how the commission votes, would the applicant be willing to consider additional options? I know you said this is the plan, but is there any wiggle room there to just kind of continue the conversation?
Yes, we've looked at several plans. I think Doug did. I think we had 7 or 8 different layouts trying to get that building up against the street. So he can kind of speak to that. I think they were somewhat supportive of doing something along the lines of this site plan. If you want to scroll in a little bit there.
If you center it more to the left.
You got the thing? Okay. So this gets the building up against the road, but it also retains the ingress and egress here, the access. You have it bigger? Nice.
That's a
Okay.
mistake.
All right, so yes, this gives us the access in and out off of East Grand. They've got to kind of come up here, and this is how I understand the subway is a lot like this on Southwest 9th, where you come in and you almost make a full U-turn. It feels that way, but it works. They stack, and they come out. They can then go in the alley and come out, or they can go off on 15th. What's vital here is getting at least an exit on East Grand, because he did show you how you'd have to meander your way back to East Grand. And
Have you driven East Grand?
oh, yes, sir.
Every day?
Not every day, but I'm
Okay,
very
all
familiar. I'm there often. We own that property. Do you drive? Are you familiar with
Almost
it?
every single day.
Yeah. What do you think?
That's not going to work.
The access point?
The
Or
access
what?
where it's at on Grand Avenue is not going to work, because traffic backs up almost all the way up to your buildings, clear down the next street. And so, first of all, she's talking about people that are hyped up on wanting their coffee. There ain't no way they're going to get in, because it's going to take forever because of that turn point there. I don't know, well, I'll stop right now, but there are some other people. Joanne?
Go back to your original picture, please. Now, are your driveways off of Grand and off into the alley, are those two-way or single direction?
It would be in and out.
I would in on Grand and out on the alley. I would only go in on Grand. And you would have to figure out,
One that shows how far you got.
and then you can go in and out in the alley, because you're not fighting avid,
Right, trying to get.
coffee-deprived morning people.
How do you have to? Oh, this will work. Yeah, I understand your comment, and I absolutely agree with you until I realized what you're going to have to do. Eric spoke about this a little bit, but you're going to have to come out here, shoot across the 3 lanes of traffic up to here, to Des Moines Street, shoot again across 14th and down and over.
Well,
It's
that
just
isn't
not
going to
something
happen.
we're
People who are
trained
going to do that once or twice, and it is never going to happen again.
They,
You're going to get
No,
the
they will
people
not.
who are
That's why
going
they-
north, and you're getting the people that are going west, and I'll tell you, that's about all you're going to get after they've tried this a few times. So if you make your circulation within there simple, you will get those people over and over again. Another thing, back to the original plan, please? Or original picture?
Sure.
If you switched your building and this drive, just on the Grand side, you've got your NPC requirement of being on the street.
right, and I
And you've
think,
got your business going on the other side of it.
it's-
The drive-through window has to be.
it has to be on the
right
driver's side.
of the car.
That's what makes this
Only.
tricky, too.
Otherwise, the driver is reaching across the seat to get only for the passenger.
If they weren't going to line up, that would be okay.
It's very tricky.
Only in England, yeah,
It's tricky. I've had that happen a few times.
yeah.
Any other
Okay,
questions?
well, that didn't work, but of the drive-through part, or the driving part,
CJ?
I really feel you're only going to get your people a couple of times if they have to go all the way around to go south again.
Absolutely, and that's why I think that East Grand exit is so critical.
You need,
Terrible.
it
CJ?
isn't going to work. It's just not in the morning.
I just have a couple comments. First of all, I'm one of those people that do have the caffeine need in the morning. And I know that if I tried that once and I could not keep moving, because I would not be back. And I just can't see people doing that day after day. And Scooters had a operation at 63rd and Grand, and I think maybe it was the same thing because traffic was always stopped in front of that building.
Yep.
You had to wait 15 minutes to get there, and then you had to wait 15 more minutes to get back out into the traffic. So and it didn't work, and they've been gone for some time, and that's just one street outside of Des Moines. So, they make a great product, but I think for them to succeed, they really need to consider a different location. And I appreciate what you're trying to do for the city, because definitely that piece of land needs some, and their building is attractive.
It is, absolutely. And I have to trust as a developer, and not the business there, that they have done their due diligence on this. We've been talking for almost, I would say probably 9 months or so. They know what, they have their standards for a site. They've looked at this, they've sat at that corner.
Has there been a
They've
traffic
considered that.
study, traffic safety study on that?
Oh, I do not know. Unlikely. I think they've just done traffic counts and then, sat and watched. I did the same type of work for Come and Go before, and you do a lot of homework before you invest on something like this. And so I have to trust their judgment. I can't tell them whether or not, if people are going to come back or not. I think that they would, but just based on location, and there aren't any other services around there. You can go to Quick Trip, but, it's not as quick and easy.
Oh, it's a nightmare.
Thanks.
Yes.
I'm happy to see these new drawings that Doug put up, because I was concerned that the first one you put up, that you guys are going to be pretty rigid about that layout. For me personally, I also agree that the building needs to be up on the street.
Okay.
I believe that people from the Capitol will walk over, and I know that when I go over to Los Orales more than I should. I actually prefer to park on East Grand, get out, walk along the street. A, I don't want to deal with the congestion of the cars in the lot, and B, I like walking along the street, some little shops and things. So I think more people will frequent this on foot than you might think.
Okay.
So I'm not saying that this is necessarily something that can't be successful here. It's a bit of a shame that it'll take a racetrack to kind of lay out here in a figure eight to make it work. So, yeah, that does beg the question of, is this the highest and best use? I thoroughly appreciate, and I've worked with you guys, I appreciate that you're looking for a solution here. But I think the solution has to be a hybrid like this that is more about serving the goal of creating a walking environment, especially the idea of creating, I spent a lot of time down in Phoenix. There's a coffee place down there called Dunn Brothers, and they do exactly this. They have these small little 400 square foot buildings. I've been to 2 or 3 of them. They're always up on the street. And what I notice is there's always a small plaza outside with about 3 little tables, because there's always a couple people that want to sit there and check their email, do something, whatever they're going to do. They're not looking to sit there for 3 hours. So I think no matter where your building is, the fact that the first plan didn't even have a spot to do that, that is so important to have those little places for people to sit. And so I would encourage you, in wherever this ends up, that you do have that sort of little plaza opportunity, whether it's a big grand one on the corner or something small, that's immaterial to me. But those are the things that I think we need to continue to do, because that is what's successful in your development in East 15th. Even though the car parking is a huge headache for you guys, they're all so successful, and it's so pedestrian, it's such a wonderful place. I would make this difficult on the cars just so you can make it easier on the people.
Now, Abigail, let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
Now that you've heard from everybody,
Yes.
would you prefer that we continue this matter tonight and give you an opportunity to work with staff and come up maybe, and I can't guarantee that's going to happen. I drive that street every day. Going in may work on Grand, but coming out on Grand, they're never going to get out. And so, I'm just offering that as, if you will, an olive branch to say, if you guys go back to the table and try and figure this out, it's probably a better thing than for us to decide it tonight, where we know we've got a huge impasse. Your call.
I guess we're looking for guidance. I feel I've gotten that this is more preferred plan, maybe patio seating or a walk-up window or something along those lines. I guess what I just need education on this, because I'm not sure of this.
So continuance would work for you then?
I think it would, and I want to know, because some of you feel that the business would not be successful here, can you deny a project based on that feeling that a business may not be successful? I do not.
Highest and best use is our concern. Is this the highest and best use? And you're kind of hearing that it's not. I mean, not in the configuration we've got right now.
And I need guidance on what would be.
Greg?
I think those are we always try to offer opinions beyond what it is. We're just going to look at the site plan. Some of us have said we have heartburn with the site plan that you brought, but we wouldn't necessarily if you put the building up to the street. So that's really all we're going to say. It's up to the owner to decide if they can make it fly or not from a functional point of view. But certainly, I think we want to see the building up closer to the street like staff does. So however we have to get there.
And the other thing, understand, all of us sitting here, we've taken a lot of flack that we're not pro-business, but we want businesses to succeed. When we put something in there, we want them to be successful. I mean, we'd be stupid to do anything else. And so we want that opportunity to be there for those people, and we don't want to shoot them in the foot before they ever get in the door. Mike, did you have something?
Yeah. This is the first time we've seen this sketch that's on the screen right now. I think when we looked at it, we tried to respect the dimensions that they had for their drive aisles, assuming they had corporate standards for what their drive aisle widths, drive-through lanes needed to be. We could not figure out a way to get, and the one thing I'll point out that really what this does is, on the one sketch we had with the exit just going out to Grand Avenue, that was a one-way, and the parking aisle was a two-way travel lane. So this has just really inverted that and put one way for the internal parking lot circulation and two-way for the driveway in and out there. That's fine. That's the only dimension we could get to work. And I challenged them to, if they could adjust their dimensions in a way that would work. That's fine. that was, this actually is similar, I guess, to what we had. We actually had a double drive. Anyone that's parking there, those will be employee parking spaces only is what that'll end up being. There won't be drive up, come in, sit down. So I agree, the patio was one of the things that we were really pushing for, was some sort of walk-up presence to this. If a car doesn't want to drive here, I personally don't think someone will likely drive here, park, get out and get coffee. I don't think that's a model. I do think people could walk there.
Okay.
And I see people walk to Quick Trip. I see
Yeah.
a lot of people at the State House walking to the Quiznos. There's a lot of high school kids that walk to the McDonald's from East High School during the lunch hour.
And the Quiznos.
But, I do think people would walk. And you have apartments across the street too, and it's an option.
And if I can add onto that, I think this layout has a lot of merit. And I think you had mentioned at one point, I think in the drawing you brought first about doing this berm all around the edges and hiding. I actually think you don't want to hide this. You have this opportunity here to make a nice space on the corner.
Up against the road, I wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah, you have a
Right.
nice space up against the corner there, and I think you landscape it and you let a few tables and chairs be out there, and I think it could be very wonderful.
Okay.
I think this could be successful, yes.
So are you all right with the continuance? You want to do that?
Yes, but I'm leaving knowing that
Where you're going?
this plan, yes, we need to add some patio, we need to cater to pedestrian.
Yeah.
And I'm hopeful that would,
There might be, I think I talked with you about when the building is out at the street, there might have to be some additional glass on that one facade.
we'll have to
We
look.
thought that might be able to be accommodated. I don't really care if you can see in and see-ish,
Yeah.
coffee stacked in the window or whatever.
Those faux windows with glass, right?
Probably not spandrel, but
No.
Can't be spandrel.
No
We-
fake, no.
But this could be the walk-up window opposite the drive-through window, so to speak. And then we just add one more window. I'm speaking, I'm spending all sorts of your money. Is this?
option.
I understand in the morning, there are a ton of people that go into Quick Trip, and then they jam up traffic all through there. If they have this place on the other side where they can go in and get their coffee, coming from the east side to downtown, they're going to want to do that. But if you bring them out on Grand, you're going to have a problem because they can't get out on Grand.
They still would have the option to go out 15th.
Yeah,
They
much
would. I
better.
do,
Yeah.
I do think people, they'll figure it out. I think they're gonna let them out one car at a time. I let people through all the time, but we can let scooters speak too.
Okay,
That's
we
okay.
I'm sorry, go
Would
ahead.
that work?
Yes.
Speak to that.
Sean Ballens, 11669 South Chestnut, Olathe, Kansas. I'm with Scooters. We did this faux windows, well, you call them whatever you want. I mean, because there's equipment and bathrooms that back up there, they look like windows, but they can meet that. If you do want, we're not opposed to doing walk-up, we're not opposed to doing patio, we've done it in the past. But I'll speak to that with our drive-through locations. They're very few. I mean, we have a whole patio that sits empty in many locations, but we're willing to do that. I mean, that's not it's just a little more concrete. This window would have to be the walk-up window sliding. We would just lose a little bit of interior space as far as storage and counter.
Or even if you put the walk-up on the, what would that be, west side, towards the patio side, and just introduce people to your patio, that could work really well too.
Instead of
Am I
the
saying that right?
walk-ups.
Or south, east, west? Where am I at?
That's true.
You follow what I'm saying? Towards the
Yeah, no, I
intersection of the
Yeah.
patio?
As far as the way this is all.
Because then you wouldn't have to do all this,
It doesn't-
you wouldn't have to do the faux stuff if you don't want to, and just,
The only problem with that is the way they lay out it.
Oh,
They have
okay.
inside and the operational and speed and getting people
Okay.
through fast.
that's fine.
That makes it real challenging for us.
Okay.
But, yeah.
You
Okay.
can stay up here just in case.
I'll speak a little bit at the 63rd and Grand.
Yeah.
The reason why that one went away, it's not because we didn't have business there. Anyway, it wasn't that, there was a lot more to it than that, so.
Do you
Good
want to
motion.
do a continuance, scooters? I should ask you. To next week, or 2 weeks.
Do I have a motion?
I'll move for continuance.
Okay.
Thank you.
And a motion for continuance to the next meeting, which is what, how long do you need?
The next meeting,
Okay?
it won't take us long at all.
Next meeting, which is what?
Hold on.
June 5th. Okay.
Yeah, we didn't, I think that's up to us. isn't it? the one or two ways on Grand.
I would suggest you work
This
with
shows the exit
staff.
only.
Work with staff.
Yeah, and we're going to
Guidance on
suggest you
that.
work with
Work
staff,
with staff.
obviously, during the continuance
Yep,
period. So you
that's
guys
what
can,
I'm thinking.
when you come back, we'd like to see staff and you arm in arm, well, I'm kidding. Yeah, Jackie's figured it out.
We'll see.
Anyway,
No, we always hold hands.
any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of continuing this to June 5th, please signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, same sign. We're asking you guys to work with staff. Thank you.
Thank you. I think.
Don't let Mike try to draw anything.
Sorry about that.
Well, if you could skip in that, no, I'm kidding.
Limited amount of time.
Mike, director's
No
report.
report.
No director's report. Arno, anything? Okay. That having been said, anything for the good of the group? Mike, or Roger, anything?
Yes, sir.
Long.
Okay. Anything else for the good of the group? Seeing none, we're adjourned.
Here we are again. Haven't seen you around in a while. Where have you been? New look, you found your style. Make you realize if you open your eyes, you can change your view. Walk a city block in these shoes. Something old for something new. Change your view. Heard you moved out west. Rumors, gossip, and tabloid papers.